Okay, it's me again, Pat Stewart up in the attic, and we're going to go over what I think is probably the driest part of keeping goats. But it also includes colors, so a lot of people really get excited about that. This is the paperwork section, and we're going to start by just looking at a registration paper and go over some of the basic terminology. If it says the name of the sire, that's the father. The dam is the mother. Okay? When it says herd name, that's your herd name. And you have to get that herd name reconciled between whichever registries you want to use. I use American Goat Society and American Dairy Goat Association. I don't use Nigerian Dwarf Goat Association because there are no shows up here and because they prefer a smaller animal than I do. I still work with AGS even though I have some serious issues with them because that's where the history of my line came from. But if I really had to choose between one or the other, I would use ADGA, or American Dairy Goat Association, because that's where I think the future of the breed is. The American Goat Society is very active in the Southwest. I live in the Northeast. It's now run by one single family and no longer is as responsive to the membership as it once was when I first joined it. The in the IDGR or the IDGR or the International Dairy Goat Registry was the first registry to take on the Nigerian dwarf goat. AGS was the second, and AGS is where the Nigerian dwarf made its mark. But the goal was always to get ADGA to take on the Nigerian, and they were hesitant for a long time because they didn't see them as working animals, and they really were a working animal registry. Now they see the value, and in fact, I'm sure that the Nigerians have made the registry much more solvent. So you choose which ones you want. Probably the cheapest is IDGR, the next would be AGS, and the most expensive, but the biggest bang for your buck, is ADGA. Between those three registries and National Dairy Goat Association, you have to come up with an individual herd name that is not used in any of the registries that you want to use. Okay? Then you have to come up with an individual herd tattoo. And that herd tattoo has to be reconciled between all your registries of choice as well. So I would suggest that you work with the American Dairy Goat Association first. They're the largest registry. Figure out what combination of letters or numbers are unique to your herd that you will remember in conjunction with your herd name. Make sure that you buy that herd name and that tattoo number when you have also checked out to make sure that that's going to work with your other registries of choice. Okay? For example, my first tattoo was HA1, but somebody else came along that was using HA as a tattoo number, so we switched to HX1. HX1 was suitable for both ADGA and AGS. Hames and Axel Farm is a pretty unique name. That was suitable for both ADGA and AGS. I bought that herd name in both registries. However, I bought it before the Nigerian was accepted into ADGA. Ultimately, when I began to register my animals with ADGA, they no longer had any record of ever having reserved my herd name. So I had to re-buy my herd name. Okay? No registry is perfect. Every registry has problems. ADGA has a lot of different herds to deal with. It's frustrating, but it's understandable. So now, all animals that are born on my farm are registered as Hames and Axel Farm, blah 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 blah. Before that, when I re-registered American Goat Society animals with ADGA, those animals became known as AGS, Hames and Axel, blah 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 blah, to show that they had been re-registered from AGS. Then I started getting the AGS, Hames and Axel Chamisol. The, if I'd known about it, meant that they didn't recognize Hames and Axel Farm. Something up here in the attic makes my nose itch. So, we've got things straightened out now, and animals that come from my farm are known as Hames and Axel Farm, blah, blah, blah. If they're registered with AGS, the name is the same as if they're registered with ADGA. And again, I don't use the other two registries. So your biggest headache to start out with is not really the goats. It's what herd name are you going to use? What is your tattoo number? Okay, and those are unique to yours. Now, where does that come into play? It comes into play when you're registering an animal, also when you're tattooing an animal. Because if you're tattooing, or even if you're microchipping, there are still specific numbers and letters that have to go on each animal. If you're tattooing, and you're using Nigerians, because Nigerians have erect ears, and they have room for their tattoos in their ears, the right hand ear for the goat, not the right hand ear that you're looking at, but the goat's right hand ear is the herd name. So that's your place of registration, where that baby was born. So on my farm, that's HX1. The left ear for the goat is their unique marker for what year they were born and in what order they were born. So there is a generally understood, you don't have to live by it, but it's really convenient if you do, year of birth. They give a letter to each year. This year is J. So all babies born in 2017 are J. All those goats born in 2018 will be K. Those goats born in 2019 will be M. L is not used, neither is I. G is not used, and neither is Q. Because those tattoos can be really hard to identify between an L or an I, a Q or a G, or a letter 1 in the case of the L or the I. So some letters are skipped, but 2017 is J, 2018 will be K, 2019 will be M. All right? So if you are looking at buying an animal and you look at its tattoo, you should be able to tell and figure out what year it was born in by the corresponding year number or year letter, by the corresponding year letter. So when it says tattoo, and it will say right ear or left ear, or it may say tail web, that refers to the manchas who actually are tattooed in their tail web because they don't have enough ear to use as a tattoo. Then it will say what kind of ears they have. Ours are erect. If your goat's ears are not erect, then you may not be able to show them. You will, in the ADGA record, it says, what are the ears and does it correspond? What breed does it correspond? It will say what breed is the animal and what does it look like. It is a Nigerian dwarf. It should look like a Nigerian dwarf. That they use the same paperwork for whichever breed they're working with or grades, which are mixed goats. So if you're looking at an animal that is a cross between a Nubian and an Alpine, it might conform more to the Alpine rule because its ears are floppy. That's just an example. With Nigerians, all the goat's ears should be erect, so we're good on that. We'll then say horned. And horned is polled, disbudded, dehorned, or horned. And the difference between disbudding and dehorning is disbudding is burning, dehorning is actually surgically removed. If I've got goats that have been disbudded, but they have regrown their skurs to a serious extent. I have one buck named Atlas whose horns are about that long now, even though he was disbudded 3 times. He was disbudded, but on his ADGA paperwork it says he was horned. because at the time that he was registered with ADGA, he had serious horns. The purpose of this registration paper is twofold. It's one, for them to have record of what came from your herd. It's also as a check with the USDA. So if an animal is caught running around in Kansas and it has your tattoo number on it and it has your herd name on it and it says polled, but it's got horns on it, then they're not going to chase it down to you. Or they may ask you, did this happen?